Peace be upon you and welcome back to Universal Unity. This has been a video I've been thinking about making for a while because I want to address the unity of all believers. And I've broken it down to about 4 parts. I'd like to address who are the believers and what is the definition of a believer. What is it that unites all believers? What is the purpose or objective of all the believers? And can there be unity amongst all believers? So let's start with that first portion. Who are the believers and what is the definition of a believer? So we hear everyone saying, I am a believer. We even hear people challenging others saying, well, that person there or those group of people, they are not true believers. But what is a true believer? Who gets to decide who is a believer and who is not? Whose definition are we going to go by? Which religion or which title are we going to go by? Of course, the simple answer is that we should go by the definition given to us by God. And throughout all of God's scriptures, believers have been defined as those who believe in God, the last day, and lead a righteous life. All true believers have these 3 basic qualities about them. So let's take a look in the Quran, God's final testament, as to what he says regarding who are the believers. Unity of all submitters. Chapter 2, verse 26. Surely those who believe, those who are Jewish, the Christians, and the converts, anyone who believes in God and believes in the last day and leads a righteous life will receive their recompense from their Lord. They have nothing to fear, nor will they grieve. The minimum requirements for salvation. Chapter 5, verse 69. Surely those who believe, those who are Jewish, the converts, and the Christians, any of them who believes in God and believes in the last day and lead a righteous life have nothing to fear, nor will they grieve. So we learn from these verses that the minimum requirement set by God to be considered a believer, regardless of the title of your faith, is that you must 1. Believe in God, 2. Believe in the last day, and 3. Lead a righteous life. Therefore, you cannot have a deficit in any of these 3 areas. You can't say you believe in God, call yourself a believer, but not believe in the day of resurrection, the day that you will be held fully accountable for all your works. Likewise, you can't be a believer or call yourself a believer and not lead a righteous life. Somebody who lives unrighteously is not truly conscious of God, nor does he or she truly believe in him. Because if they truly believed that there was a God, they would live life righteously, knowing that one day they will return to him and be held accountable for what they've done. So one must believe in God and all of his qualities in order to be considered a believer. One who does not, for example, believe in God's omnipotence, does not truly believe in God. What unites all believers? All religions of the world, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and others, have been severely corrupted through innovation, tradition, and idolization of humans, such as the prophets and the saints. And it is the idolization of these idols or human factors that has led to the division of all believers. It is the human factor, the devotion and prejudice to such powerless humans, such as Jesus, Muhammad, the saints, that causes division, hatred, and bitter wars amongst the misguided believers. A guided believer is devoted to God alone and rejoices in seeing any other believer who is devoted to God alone, regardless of the name such a believer calls his or her religion. Because what unites all believers is the belief in God alone. So when I come across a Christian, a Jew, a Hindu, a Sikh, or somebody who is just searching, and they tell me, I do believe in God, I believe there's a God out there, I feel united with them. So I'm a submitter, and the religion that I follow is submission. And submission is the religion whereby we recognize God's absolute authority and reach an unshakable conviction that God alone possesses all power, and no other entity possesses any power that is independent of him. Thus, if you are someone who believes in God's absolute authority, and that such an authority belongs to him and him alone, and you believe in the last day and lead a righteous life, then we are brothers and sisters in faith. What is the purpose or objective of the believers? Simply put, the purpose of all believers is to worship God alone and no other powerless entity. God alone possesses all power and the right to be worshipped, and the believers recognize this. By worshiping God, the believers feed and nourish their souls and are thus able to become closer to God. So come, let's focus on God, learn about his attributes, and come to appreciate them. Let us reverence God as he should be reverenced. Invitation to all the believers. Say, O followers of the scripture, let us come to a logical agreement between us and you, that we shall not worship except God, that we never set up any idols beside him, nor set up any human beings as lords beside God. If they turn away, say, bear witness that we are submitters. God is my Lord and your Lord. You shall worship him alone. This is the right path. This same message can be found in other scriptures as well. For example, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one God. Therefore you shall adore the Lord your God with all your hearts, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. Let us meditate on God, his glorious attributes, who is the basis of everything in this universe as its creator, who is fit to be worshipped as omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, and self-existent conscious being, who removes all ignorance and impurities from the mind and purifies and sharpens our intellects. Can there be unity among all believers? The simple answer is yes, of course there can. As expected from the Creator's final message, one of the prominent themes in the Quran is the call for unity among all believers, and the repeated prohibition of making any distinction among God's messengers. If the object of worship is one and the same, there will be absolute unity amongst all believers. In other words, if we all make God our focus and to worship God, we will be united. Rather than sit and argue over which human beings we should reverence or respect more, let's unite and talk about why God is worthy of our worship. And let's talk about all the things God does for us and all the blessings he puts in our life. So come, let us show our appreciation to our Creator and not waste our time bickering and arguing amongst ourselves. Let's work righteousness in his name and seek to do the righteous works that please him. If this is our focus, there will always be unity among the believers. So let's kill our egos and come together to the worship of God alone. Praise be to God, Lord of the universe. Peace.